In this class, we're going to use the intruder functionality of Burp Suite to discover the clients that are connected to the same network as the web server hosting the vulnerable web application and the services running in these clients. So right here we have another shop website. It's not exactly the same as the previous one. As usual, you want to test every single functionality in here, but I already know what's vulnerable, and it is the stock checking functionality in here, similar to the previous example. So running a normal test, as you can see, gets you the number of units available of this product in stock. We're going to go ahead and turn on the interceptor, send the request again. And as usual, again, you want to test everything in here. But what we're interested in here is this part of the request. And again, if we right click it and decode it, you'll notice that this is a request that is being sent to a different URL. And again, comparing this URL to the URL that we see in here, we can see that this is a different URL. And therefore, we conclude that this server that is hosting this website is actually sending this request to another server to get data from it. And therefore, this is a server-side request. And as users were able to modify this request in any way, shape, or form, then that means we're able to forge requests and send them on behalf of this web server to other web servers. And therefore, that means we have discovered a server-side request forgery vulnerability and we are able to exploit it. In the previous example, we changed the URL in here to localhost to load whatever web server that is loading on the current server that has the web server application installed on it. But in this example, if you look at the URL, you will notice that this is an internal IP. I know this is an internal IP because it's actually a reserved IP that can only be used in internal networks. So if you look up internal IPs, you'll see a number of examples, and one of them is 192.168.0.1. Now, what you see in here after the IP, after the colon, is the port that this request is being sent to. So it's being sent to this address, to this port. If you don't specify the port, similar to what we did in the previous example, then the data is sent to the default port, which is port 80. But in this example, as you can see, there is specifically specifying port 8080, and therefore this data or this request is going to be sent to this IP on port 8080. Now, let's first of all verify that this web server is vulnerable to a server-side request forgery, and then if we do manage to discover the vulnerability, we'll see how we can modify this request to discover all of the clients connected to the same network. So, to just verify that this is vulnerable, we're going to need to modify this request and see if that request gets submitted. So, let's send this to the repeater. And in here, let's keep this simple and remove all of this. Highlight the URL encode it, and send it. So we're basically just trying to see if we're able to modify the original request, send it, and actually get a response for it. Because if we can do that, then we actually have a server-side request forgery vulnerability, and then from there we'll see the impact and see what we can do with it. But the bottom line is we are able to modify the request and have the server submit it on our behalf. And as you can see, when we sent this request, we actually got a valid HTTP response. It's simply telling us there is missing parameters, which makes sense because we actually removed everything that came after the /. Now, because we know that this range right here, the 192.168.0.1, is a range for internal IPs, let's simply try to increase this IP. Instead of 1, let's just change it to something else that is still valid, like 2, and send the request as is. Now, as you can see, the request we got now is significantly different. It's basically a 500 internal error, and if we actually render the response, you'll see that it's telling us could not connect to the external stock check service. So basically it's telling us that this IP right here, 192.168.0.1, we're not able to connect to it at all. It's as if there is nothing running on this address on the specified port, which is 8080. Whereas when we requested 1, and sent the request, as you can see, it's simply telling us missing parameter. So it's able to connect this to this IP, it's able to connect to this port, but it's missing something because we actually removed everything that comes out of this. Therefore, by simply modifying this request and increasing the number in here from 1 to 2 to 3 all the way up to the end of the range, which is 254, we will be able to discover all of the internal IPs, so all of the internal computers connected to the same network as the server hosting the vulnerable application, and then we can even change the AT80 to whatever ports that we are trying to discover on the target computers. We can actually do all of that using Burp's Intruder. Just keep watching to learn how.